Hello and welcome. This is India Global. I'm Arjun Samar Mahendran, and here are the headlines this Tuesday. 6 months, zero movement as India extends its airspace ban to Pakistan Airlines till the 24th of October. Donald Trump and RFK Jr. promote unproven claims about autism, linking it to paracetamol, declaring it dangerous for pregnant women. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets Marco Rubio at UNGA sidelines. Key bilateral and global issues, including energy, pharmaceuticals, and critical minerals, discussed. UK PM Keir Starmer expected to visit India in October. Talks with PM Modi on education and defence sectors likely. And amid Trump's visa crackdown, India's Srini Gopalan to lead T-Mobile and Rahul Goyal set to lead Molson Coors. In New York, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has met US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in fact, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. Now, the high-stakes meeting comes amid growing tensions over trade tariffs and also the steep visa fee hikes that have, in fact, rattled Indian tech firms. Meanwhile, both leaders discussed key bilateral and global issues, including energy, pharmaceuticals, and critical minerals as well. While no public comments were made after the meeting, Jaishankar posted online calling for sustained engagement on priority areas. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, meanwhile, is also in the US this week as both sides pushed for a breakthrough in stalled trade talks. Now, the meeting signals a possible reset or a thaw in ties as India and the US work through growing economic and diplomatic friction. President Trump addresses the UNGA just a few hours from now, while EAM Jaishankar speaks later this week, to be precise, on the 27th. My colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for more on this. Vishal, the External Affairs Minister meeting Marco Rubio just ahead of the UNGA. Piyush Goyal is there. How do you see this going, and can we expect a big decision coming in before the return of the External Affairs Minister Jaishankar and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal back to India?
Yes, that's exactly right, and this is yet another step, a big step in the direction of re-establishing and consolidating the ties that had sort of plummeted in the recent past. Ever since Trump's repeated tirades against the Indian administration, and also his deputies repeated attacks on the PM of India. So the ties seem to be getting back on track, is what we've seen in the recent past. In the last 15 days or so, we've had several meetings. This is Piyush Goyal's visit to the US, and also our foreign minister is in the US territory. He's already met his counterpart from the US side, and the details of the meeting have not been shared, but we can gather that these are some really positive signs, because as soon as the meeting got over, as Jaishankar had displayed that the thumbs up sign, so that also shows that the ties are getting back on track after several weeks of attacks from both the sides, mostly from the US side, during which his deputies had repeatedly attacked the Indian Prime Minister and questioned India's foreign policy on several fronts, to which experts had already rebuffed, because the argument that India buying oil from the Russian side and that in turn funneling the Ukraine war does not really make any sense, because it was the US in the original place that had recommended India to do so back when COVID hit the world economy. So all of these talks could have figured in the all of these things could have figured in the talks, but we are yet to get the details of the talks. But these are indeed some really positive signs.
Now, Vishal, we recently saw the US administration, Donald Trump, making that H-1B $100,000 announcement just recently. How is it being perceived on the Indian side? It came just a couple of days before the External Affairs Minister was slated to, in fact, be in New York. Is this being seen as another pressure tactic by US President Donald Trump and the subsequent amendments they made to the initial announcement where they said it'll be a blanket $100,000 fees every year for people applying for new H-1B visas, which since the statement has changed not one but multiple times?
Well, Trump's flip-flop on the H-1B visa program has been known. He has just, in the last 1 year itself, made twice, different statements. Back in December 2024, he had said that he supports the H-1B program, but cut to this month, about 9 months from the last year, he's saying the opposite, and he's clearly claiming that H-1B program needs to be, analyzed, and he has clearly brought in this $100,000, program in place, and that seems to have deterred a lot of people who would have wished to go to the US to, a lot of high-tech graduates who would have gone to the US to propel the US economy, propel the US technology, but that will have to be analyzed. It's still really early to say what will be the effect, but of course when it comes to H-1B visa, Indians are the most, when it comes to the people going to the US on that visa. Close to almost 3 lakh people are in the US who are on this H-1B visa. China is distant second with about 11% of the total H-1B visa grantees. So all of this will have to be analyzed in the near future, because a lot of people are arguing that the fact that the US economy, the US tech industry has boomed in the recent past, in the last 10 years or so, that has really been hinging on the talent that has gone from the Indian soil to the US soil. So what will happen to that? Will this be a brain drain, for the US economy? So all of that will have to be analyzed.
Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest there, Vishal. We shift our focus westwards back to the US, where Donald Trump has ignited yet another controversy. That's correct. Now, in the latest, Trump is under fire after linking a common pain-relieving drug, Tylenol in this case, to autism in unborn children. Now, at a press conference alongside Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Trump said pregnant women should limit or even stop using Tylenol. Now, Trump's claim is not backed by science. That's what we're getting to here. The president called it a historic medical breakthrough nonetheless. And what's more, he's pushing for delayed childhood vaccines and new autism cures. However, experts quickly push back. Meanwhile, listen in to what Donald Trump said.
Don't take Tylenol. There's no downside. Don't take it. You'll be uncomfortable. It won't be as easy, maybe, but don't take it. If you're pregnant, don't take Tylenol.
The real concern we have is we know that autism and the spectrum disorders are multifaceted. They run in families. There's clearly a genetic component. And so to pin it all on a medication like acetaminophen is just hard to believe.
As you see, medical researchers are saying there's no proven link between Tylenol and autism in the US. Additionally, they're also warning that this rhetoric could in fact mislead families and put material health at risk. For more on this, I'm joined by Padma Shri awardee and chairman and MD of the Nephron Clinic, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with us, sir. Now, I'll straight away get to the million-dollar question here, Dr. Bagai. Does Donald Trump, or do his claims have any sort of medical efficacy or backing, sir?
Good afternoon. So let's go straight to the point as far as science is concerned. Autism is now called as autism spectrum disorder because it's a syndromic spread of varying and overlapping symptoms which often can mimic attention deficit disorder or hyperactive disorder, or even places like schizophrenia and OCD, that's your obsessive compulsive disorders. Now, this is multifactorial. There is no cause and effect as a linear relationship. There is a very strong family link. There is a familial link. Genetics play a role ranging from 10% going up to 94%. And we have a chromosome link as the short arm of chromosome number 16. There are prenatal drugs, mainly anticonvulsants. There are environmental factors. Air pollution plays a very big role. Plastic pollution plays a very big role. And of course, maternal diabetes during pregnancy and hypertension. What does the science say as far as peer-reviewed literature is concerned? There is a very, very small study of just a handful of children which have shown a doubtful, inconclusive pointer towards autism linked with acetaminophen, which is Tylenol. Larger studies, which are really from the Anquist data, in which 2.5 million children have been studied, no association found. The largest study from Japan of 2 lakh children, no link found. There is no link as a meta-analysis of 2018 either with vaccination. There is a SIP control study which has been published in JAMA in 2024, in which they have analyzed 1.86 lakh children, no association found. So acetaminophen has to be prescribed in pregnancy like any other drug in pregnancy, with caution, with dose control, only on medical grounds. That's the common advice which is given for any medication during pregnancy. But to single out Tylenol is dangerous, it's premature, it's foolhardy, and it can be risky. So let me explain why it can be risky not taking acetaminophen or paracetamol. The safest drugs amongst all antipyretics, which is fever control medicines, is acetaminophen or paracetamol. Almost 20% of pregnancies have some sort of indication for fever, infection, inflammation. If you don't treat it, the fever itself can cause more harm. The infection itself can cause more harm to the fetus. Like I said, there is no indication of a direct link. This is inconclusive, and it would be very premature to label acetaminophen. The messaging can go wrong. I think the messaging should be science-based. No politician should enter into the medical arena to give advice which is not authentic, not scientific, and not data-backed. Over to you.
Dr. Bagai, very, very important point you raised there. The messaging should be scientific. Very, very quickly, Dr. Bagai, how should public health institutions respond to such high-level pseudoscience, if we may call it that?
I think these kind of statements should be dismissed straight away. There is no doubt in it. Medical science has to be evidence-based, it has to be research-based, it has to be data-proven. Multi-analysis, meta-analysis of lakhs of children. In fact, one of the studies has 2.5 million children which have been analyzed, pregnancy fetuses, and then the newborn child. There has been no link which is statistically significant with regards paracetamol.
No link there, says Dr. Bagai. Dr. Bagai, we'll have to move on due to paucity of time. But thank you so much for putting clarity for the benefit of viewers. This being such an important story that we're breaking here on India Global this Tuesday. Now, moving on, in a powerful moment on the UN floor, French President Emmanuel Macron has formally recognized the state of Palestine. His words were clear: this is not a reward, it's a right. He was not alone. He was joined by Monaco, Belgium, Andorra, Malta, and Luxembourg, bringing the total global recognition to over 75% of the UN membership, the existing present UN membership, that is. The Palestinian delegation, meanwhile, also stood in applause. And what about Israel? Well, its chairs sat empty. But tensions have escalated. Israel has warned of potential annexation of the West Bank now. The US called on recognitions provocative and has also threatened reciprocal action. Meanwhile, Israel has intensified its bombardment of Gaza City, killing dozens more as global leaders plead for peace. A proposed UN security force for Gaza, disarmament of Hamas, and a reformed Palestinian Authority now dominate negotiations. But with Israel still opposing recognition and the US divided, the diplomatic road ahead is steep and possibly short. And as Macron said, the time for peace is now or not at all. We're joined by Umer Anas. He is the Associate Professor at the Ankara Yildirim University in Turkey for more. Professor Anas, my first question to you. Does Israel risk isolating itself diplomatically if annexation follows these recognitions? And to be precise, there have been 12 recognitions in the past 2 days alone.
We have come to a point where we have seen that the entire Islamic and the Arab world and many of European countries are deeply frustrated of Israeli actions and America's unilateral actions about Israel. So what they are faced with is that there is complete collapse of the idea of two-state solution, which means that Israeli occupation of West Bank is coming, And they are much more convinced now that the Israeli politics in Palestine was never in favor of a Palestinian state, a sustainable Palestinian
It
state.
begs the question, can a reformed Palestinian Authority realistically govern Gaza after Hamas? Because we've not really seen condemnation against Hamas coming in. And the very idea of a reformed Palestinian Authority, how realistic is it? And how much time would this actually take?
The problem is that who will decide what is a reformed Palestinian Authority? For Israelis, for Americans, a reformed Palestinian Authority means a useless authority. And the Arabs and Europeans, they would like to have a credible state institution to take the charge in Gaza and in West Bank as well. So I think that the Israelis have no idea what they are doing. And the kind of anger and frustration which is coming from the Arab world, I think that the region is just very few days or months away from a major conflict. The streets are very angry. The politicians are angry. Even the countries which had signed the Abraham Accord with Israel in hope that they would get something in return, especially the emergence of some sort of Palestinian Authority, is they are also very angry. For example, the United Arab Emirates, they had invested so much in peace with Israel, but they have found that the Israelis' plan are for expansionism. And this situation reminds me the events of 1956 when Europeans were supporting Israel for the takeover of the Suez Canal against Egypt. And at that time, Americans had intervened to rescue the Egyptian side, and they had forced Israelis to step back from the Suez Canal occupation.
On that, I'd like to say the semantics were rather different. You know, we compare the 2025 semantics to 1956. I don't think that will be just. But are we witnessing a genuine diplomatic shift here, or just a symbolism that moves really with no teeth? 12 countries have recognized Palestinian statehood only in the last 2 days. The total number stands well above 75% at the UN, but nothing seems to come out of it. Is this just symbolism, or will this have real teeth? Very quickly.
I think that even if it is a symbolic support, symbolic recognition, it is a big step, very big step, because the European public opinion is now becoming very close, very much in favor of Palestinian state. And I mean, even American public opinion is coming very close to recognize the Palestinian state. So that is a big blow to Israeli expansion. And Israelis are losing the public opinion in most of its allies' societies. So that is a big challenge for Netanyahu and his government.
A big challenge for Netanyahu. Thank you so much for joining us on this important topic that, of course, we will keep on discussing till a logical conclusion is eventually reached. And with that, it's time we slip into a short break. Much more on the other side. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back to India Global viewers. In a week of visa crackdowns, two Indian origin leaders are heading in the opposite direction. Srini Gopalan at T-Mobile and Rahul Goyal at Molson Coors. Now, these are bold moves that challenge the anti-immigrant narrative, and rightly so, right at the top. We leave you with this very special report.
While Washington debates who gets in, US boardrooms are quietly deciding who gets to lead. And this fall, two new names are sending a clear signal. Skill still matters. Srini Gopalan will take over as CEO of T-Mobile, a telecom heavyweight with $81 billion in revenue and 70,000 employees. Gopalan grew up in Delhi, studied at DPS in St. Stephen's, then IIMA, and built his global resume at Airtel, Vodafone, and Deutsche Telekom. And now, he's expected to lead a competitive comeback against Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast. Rahul Goyal also steps up, this time to the top job at Molson Coors, the world's fourth largest brewer. An engineer from Mysuru who moved into business leadership in Denver, Goyal's rise has been long and tedious, but steady. He'll take over on October 1st with a mandate to modernize the legacy brand. But the irony, Both appointments come just as US immigration rhetoric hardens, especially around Indian professionals. Both boardrooms seem unmoved by slogans. Their eyes are still on the outcomes. At a time when borders tighten, opportunity hasn't shut out. It's just become more selective. And Gopalan and Goyal have made the cut. Bureau Report, NDTV World.